Today I'm going to show you how to make this set of Underdark themed terrain for Dungeons and Dragons for like $6. Hey guys, welcome back to Black Magic Craft. After building my Underdark themed book nook last week, it got me really wanting to make a set of Underdark themed terrain. I wanted it to be easy and accessible, durable, fast to make, and I wanted it to be really cheap. And I wanted it to look kind of cool. That's a lot of things to try to do, and generally you can't get all of them. But I'm pretty happy with what I came up with here. It's not the most realistic looking build, but I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons and it's the Underdark. The Underdark is not real. Personally, I kind of like the really comic book sort of, video game-ish looking terrain for D&D in particular. I think that aesthetic really lends itself well to casual battle mat Dorito eating gameplay. There's something about it that just works for me. I also like the idea of terrain that you can really just like manhandle and throw in a box for storage. This set cost $6 to make. 2 sheets of foam core at $1 each, so that's $2. It used 1 tube of Alex fast dry acrylic latex caulking. That caulking, you can buy the regular stuff and it costs $2.58 at Home Depot and $3.18 for the fast dry, so calling it $3, so we're at $5. And it also used, like a cup of baking soda. So let's assume you don't have baking soda and have to buy a box from the dollar store for $1, so $6. And other than that, it used like 2 sticks of hot glue, which is a price I'm not going to calculate, and some cheap acrylic craft paint. Now, if you want to be really pedantic and count that, it's like pennies worth of paint, but let's assume you don't have any paint. Apple Barrel craft paint is like 50 cents a bottle, and I used a handful of colors, so even if you don't own it, $3 will buy you the paint to make this, and you can just make it with almost nothing in your living room if you live in an apartment. So this build follows a very simple principle. Just cut a bunch of layers of a substrate in kind of round or ovalish shapes and stack them together to create layered rock formations. Now, I opted to use black foam core for this. This way, if any of the pieces get chipped or damaged, it's going to be black underneath and not be noticeable. For my fellow Canadian viewers, this is Studio Brand from Dollarama, and it has paper that's really well bonded. But you can use any sort of foam core for this. If you are going to use the easy peel stuff, I do recommend that you peel the paper off ahead of time so that you make sure you have a really good bond. This is also a perfect build for somebody that doesn't have access to any sort of foam core. You can totally use cardboard for this and it's not going to make much of a difference. The only real caveat is that you're probably going to need a little bit more acrylic caulking to fill the corrugation on the edges of the cardboard, but the final product's going to end up looking the same. Now, I found that it was a lot easier to cut out the shapes with scissors than with a knife. Normally, you'd avoid cutting with scissors because it kind of crushes the edges of the foam and can give a really rough cut. In this build, it doesn't matter. So you can just sit back and casually cut out all the layers. This makes it a perfect Netflix watching type procedure. Since it's really free form and you don't need to measure or pay attention to anything or be precise in any way, it's also really fast. I cut out and assembled my entire set in probably about under 1 hour. All you gotta do, cut a bunch of layers, hot glue them together. Real simple. The biggest thing you need to pay attention to is trying to create a variety of shapes and forms so that every piece looks a little bit different. Now, I made all of my formation pieces out of 1 single sheet of foam core. I wasn't even really trying to be mindful of waste. If you're really prudent and really frugal, you could probably get a few more pieces out of that 1 sheet. Now to coat these, you need to mix up the magic paste. The ratios don't matter here, it's very freeform. Essentially, you just want to squeeze out a bunch of the acrylic caulking and add some black paint. You can buy this stuff that already is gray, brown, or black, but it costs a little bit more, and you need to be mindful because the colored ones sometimes contain silicone, which could make them harder to paint. You can optionally also add some PVA or carpenter's glue to give it even more strength when it dries, but that can absolutely be left out. What you do want to put in is a hefty dumping of baking soda. This is going to make the coating a lot harder once it cures and will provide some subtle texture. And I want to stress here that the ratios are really not important, just dump some stuff in. This is like cooking, it's not like baking. One ingredient I didn't mention at the start of the video though is some fine sand. I added some into mine to give the paste some more grit. The reason I excluded it from the material list is that in retrospect, I don't think I should have added it. I actually think the mix works better without it and looks better without it, but feel free to experiment for yourself. Now, with that mixed up, you just want to completely cover your pieces. You don't need to be tidy with this, just slap it on and get good coverage. Make sure you really fill in the seams between layers and cover the exposed edges of the foam core. Use a big brush that you don't care about, as this is pretty hard on it, but it doesn't ruin the brush. It can be washed out after with water, and I actually continued to use this exact same brush for the entire painting process later. Now let's talk about play area for a second. You could absolutely just make the scatter terrain and use it on a battle mat, and that's what I would personally do, but if you don't have a battle mat, you don't want to buy one, you can't find one, whatever, or you just want a self-contained set that has its own play area, you can make one out of that second sheet of foam core. The trick here is to try and avoid warping, which means avoiding rectangles and pointy corners. Cut a sheet of foam core in half and then create a wavy, kind of rounded rectangle shape. Round corners are far less likely to warp and curl than pointy ones. Then take that shape and hot glue it to the other half of the sheet. Once it's attached, cut out the second layer slightly larger. You can go around the seam with hot glue to make sure they're well bonded. These two layers in this sort of shape will be very stable. You'll want to add some of that magic coating that you did on the other pieces to this sheet, but I'd recommend leaving out the PVA or carpenter's glue this time around if you used it previously. Warping is caused by a material shrinking as it dries and pulling tight a non-shrinking surface that it's attached to. PVA glue is notoriously bad for shrinking, causing warping, so just leave it out on the big flat piece. One of the nice things about acrylic latex caulking is that it doesn't shrink very much, so your base shouldn't warp. An easy way to get natural texture over the big flat area is by patting it down with a damp sponge or a paper towel. You might want something that's even more stable and durable, and you could make this base out of 1/4" MDF. You can buy 2-foot by 4-foot sheets of 1/4" MDF at Home Depot for $6, and you can apply the same mixture to it. This is personally what I do myself, but with this set, I really wanted to demonstrate that you can do it out of foam. If you have any leftover coating mixture, you can give the scatter pieces another layer. This is just going to make them even more durable and catch any spots that you might have missed. And while that magical coat is drying, let's take a second to talk about the sponsor of this week's video. The Dragon Trappers Lodge is a monthly Patreon-based service for getting 3D printable miniatures for your tabletop games. For only $10 a month, you get access to a set of really unique models with a different theme each and every month. The running theme through every month, however, are the Dragons and the Dragon Trappers. Every single month, there is a unique gargantuan scale dragon model. These models are less focused on generic monsters or hordes and are more focused on really interesting characters. The models are incredibly rich with flavor, drawing from the month's inspiration. Many also come with several different weapon options. A nice bonus is that each month they provide 5th edition D&D stat blocks for the dragons. I think it's safe to say that they're providing some of the most original and unique miniatures on the market. They're really pushing the boundaries of what's a gaming miniature and what is just legitimate art. The mix of fantasy and real-world inspirations comes together in a really remarkable way. And don't worry, if you think these models might be too detailed or difficult to set up to print, well, they all come pre-supported, making it super easy. When you join up, you get a great welcome pack and a coupon code for a discount to their previous models that are sold on myminifactory.com. You also get to vote on upcoming model themes. If you want to get in on October's really cool theme, you'll have to join up before the month is over. I'll put a link in the video description so you can check them out for yourself. I've also seen a sneak peek of their theme for November. It's really damn cool. Thanks Dragon Trappers Lodge for sponsoring this video. Now, back to some painting. Once the coating is mostly dry to the touch, you can move on to the painting. For a fun Underdark theme, I suggest laying out a palette of purples and pinks and maybe some aquas and teals and even some lime green. The Underdark is an alien landscape, and these can look however you want. This is a great opportunity to let loose and do a crazy paint job that you'd never be able to get away with on normal pieces. Let out your inner kid and go a bit crazy. This is like finger painting for grown-ups and can be an excellent change of pace if you've been painting a lot of really small, detailed things lately. This might even be a good project to involve your kids with. If you have a hard time carving out personal hobby time versus family time, well, this might be a great way to blend both worlds. When the base coat is, feeling pretty dry, you can go back in and do some highlights with the pinks, the teals, and the lime greens. Just do a heavy overbrush, something like dry brushing, but with a little bit more paint on your brush, and do it with all the colors in any sort of ratio you feel works best. Make them as weird as you want. Personally, I wanted my set to look really alien and psychedelic, as that's the way I picture the traditional Underdark from the Forgotten Realms. But your scheme is entirely up to you. Maybe you want a more generic gray or brown motif. Or maybe you want to go even crazier with some real true neon paints, or even glow-in-the-dark paint. Hell, you could even make use of black light while playing for a really cool effect. Whatever you decide, just make sure you have a lot of fun with it. So, what do you guys think? Personally, I'm pretty proud of this set here. I think I really accomplished my goal of making a neat looking Underdark terrain set that's really approachable and very cheap and easy to build. It's the kind of thing you'll get a lot of use out of. The Underdark is a well-traversed area in Dungeons and Dragons. And I think this is going to be a fan favorite when I play D&D with my daughter. I'd love to know what you guys think. If you like this video, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments section below. If you want to pick up any tools or supplies for a more complicated build than this one and you need something a little bit fancier, check out my essential equipment page on blackmagiccraft.ca. That's a great way you can support this channel and help me keep making videos, is by shopping via that page. It's also a great resource that answers a lot of frequently asked questions about the things that I use. But if you really, really like these videos that I make each and every week, you get a lot of value out of them. One of the ways that you can help me keep making them, the best way you can help me keep making them, by supporting the channel on Patreon. It's through that support that I'm able to dedicate my time and effort to these videos every week, and I'd love to have you as the newest member of the Black Magic Craft Fellowship. That's it for this week, guys. Cheers. I'll see you again next week.